So starting off with the first question of, I guess, what are the overarching question? What are the most important responsibilities of a coach? Um, I would say that the three responsibilities are one, to teach the players the correct, right, proper, and effective way to play the game. Two, to nurture life skills for the players, both on and off the court. Responsibility, accountability, and just virtues that are going to be useful for them outside of the court or field or whatever sport's being played. And third, to I guess strategically be effective to win the game. So, you know, to have the know-it-all, the brains, the experience, etc. And I think those three things are the most important responsibilities, but vary on what level of sport you're talking about. So, with youth sports, I would gauge that the nurturing of life skills is most important, followed by teaching them how to play the game and winning last. In high school sports, I would say teaching them to win. We kind of get a flip flop where winning now goes from no longer in last place to like second priority. And then on the collegiate and professional level, I think winning uh, slightly edges out the, the concept of kind of nurturing them and giving them life values and social values and ethical uh, like I guess like how to upstandingly hold yourself ethically. Um, and with that in mind, I guess that kind of links into the whole concept of all the videos we watch because we were talking about coaching and I guess some coaching failures and just kind of the flaws in the system with like oversigning and things like that. So we'll kind of dive in with discussing the oversigning of college football players' scholarships. Like the Outside the Lines video explained, there was a coach who basically said you have to make this moral decision of whether or not you think it's just to sign more players and scholarships you have. And I think the SEC is a great microcosm to examine because it said on average they're signing about 102 players to scholarships, or they have 102 scholarship players in the beginning of the summer, and by August they have to get that number down to 85. Sure, naturally a couple people are going to fade away, but that means, like in the example of Chris Garrett, you are going to have to take away the scholarship of a hardworking player who all through middle school and high school dreamed about playing for LSU, finally made it there, and then gets that snatched away at the last second. So I think it's really difficult to somehow find an ethical reason or for one to say that is ethical because plain and simple, it's not. I mean, like it said, they're assigning numbers and statistics to human beings, and I think inherently that's wrong. That's how you get things. Uh, when you dehumanize people, going back to, for example, the Qatar weightlifting team, and you just treat them as like almost property of sorts. Um, it just gets away from basic human decency. And I think the oversigning of these players kind of is just not basic human decency beyond just like correct practices in coaching. Um, so I mean, I felt pretty strongly about how unjust the system is, and I really hope there's serious reform in that. And I'm fairly certain because Rice, not being in a Power Five conference, probably isn't engaging in these type of practices. And like the SEC being a conference that produces a lot of national champions, of course, there's a lot of pressure to win every year and such things like that. But I'm glad Rice probably doesn't engage in this, but this needs to be changed on a national level for sure. Um, then when talking about the track and fear video, um, so that was really really interesting as well because you kind of got a situation where you again have this kind of ethical, uh, I guess, weighing mechanism that you have to do um, within the video. And just, I guess, kind of before we dive in, just I kind of like how Outside the Lines is a lot of the focus of what we've been kind of going on this course. I think Outside the Lines is a really good job of kind of giving a fair and not biased view of, of like what's happening in these situations, but rather kind of, it engages it in a way that isn't biased towards like the player in harm, for example, with like the Garrett example, or towards the coaches. So with track and field, you have a track coach who, I mean, it's pretty disgusting at the University of Arizona, um, who's threatening the athletes or athlete on the team. Um, and I mean, you have a situation where this person is extremely fearful of their life at certain points, and obviously you're kind of violating the whole like coach athlete relationship, um, because the coach, again, kind of going back to the responsibilities of the coach, you're there to nurture them, not to, you know I guess, engage in consensual sex with your athlete. Um, and I mean, aside from just the whole concept of how that's kind of unjust with like family values and things like that, it just leads to really problematic outcomes. Um, when you have the coach who's supposed to be helping the student also uh, engaging in improper relations um, with the coach. So University of Arizona definitely had to do some reform there, and I mean, it kind of took away from the innocence and the, I guess, the teaching aspect of what a coach and a student should be modeled after, what the policies there. Because that's there's a clear balance of power with the coach, and the athlete doesn't really have that. The coach controls the scholarship, controls her ability to graduate from a 4-year institution. Um, yeah, it, it's problematic on so many different reasons. Um, so like you can't really claim for that to be consensual when that balance of power is all with the coach. Then going on into the ethics of Augie Garrido and Austin Wood. So this is really interesting. Is I grew up a UT fan, so I don't specifically remember watching this game, but I remember definitely reading about it in the paper after. Augie Garrido was an infamous coach for the UT baseball team. Really, I mean, talented coach as well. Um, Although he's no longer there, it's now David Pierce. Um, but pitching a guy who you pitched the day before and then sending him 13 innings, there's a problem there, obviously. But the guy also, the pitcher, I believe his name was Austin Wood. Yeah, um, definitely. He said over and over he was happy to have that ability to be able to pitch there. It put him on the map nationally because he pitched just a beautiful game, um, and he still doesn't regret it to this day. So at that point, even though again, the coach is supposed to help nurture the player, you're on a collegiate level where you're there to win. And I think Austin Wood understood the risks that he was enduring by pitching so much and kind of almost blowing out his arm. And I don't have as many problems with that as the oversigning or track and fear video for sure. Um, with Derek Graves and the Idaho State football coach, where the football coach pushed him over on the field, and Derek Graves felt that was unjust and kind of, took it to the police. Um, I weirdly enough, I feel like I've been pretty progressive on my stances with a lot of these issues, but I don't think that should be something that should be dealt with externally through the police, but rather I think that's an internal process. Um, I would have preferred just like an internal school investigation into that, and with Mike Kramer getting severe sanctions, and kind of doing it in house, because when you bring it out, you get the media involved, and it just kind of blows it up to proportions that I don't know are really uh, absolutely necessary to resolve the issue. Because Derek Graves, I mean, you just want to make sure the coach is respecting the players and treating them with basic human decency, and if that can be done internally, I'd much rather prefer that than it be done externally through like a police department. Um, that's my personal view on it. But of course, I still think it was a bad action, plain and simple. So not trying to justify kind of assaulting and battery on your players, but um, yeah, I think that's an Idaho State type of investigation. With Mike Rice, that was the only, I guess, example outside of the UT baseball one that I really knew prior coming into these videos. Because I mean, if you watched any nightly news back in 2013, you saw the video of Mike Rice kind of throwing basketballs at his players at Rutgers, and shoved one guy at the top of the key down to the ground from the free throw line. Just pure abuse. With that in mind, my initial reaction is no way in hell should this guy get another shot at coaching at the college level. And then I thought about, I guess, the rehabilitation process. And one guy that came to my mind for some reason was Michael Vick, who, did a absolutely terrible thing with dogfighting. Like one of a terrible human, or I guess terrible just rights violation. Um, and he served his time in prison, rehabilitated himself, came back, was a successful NFL player in his second stint in the NFL, and and got his shot. And now, I mean, he's definitely, there's a subsection of people who will absolutely hate the guy forever, but he got that shot, and he is now, for the most part, not a pariah in society. So I think if allowing dogfighting and consenting to that is allows someone to get back, or I mean, to be quite honest with you, if we have like a president in office who talks about groping women in like a sexual manner and was still elected to the highest office in the United States, I see no reason why a coach who I think has successfully rehabilitated himself should not get another shot at coaching at the college level. Um, there's just, I mean, I guess two ways to view it. One, I think if this happened again without the age of social media back in the 1950s and 60s, this probably would have been swept under the rug and he never would have gotten fired in the first place. And second, I think, I mean, as a society, we are becoming better with this type of stuff. But uh, it, if someone expresses remorse, understands what they did was terrible, has done their time for their crime, um, I mean, that's the most they can do. And if he's still, good and like a sound strategic coach, and still can be successful on the top level, I don't see why he should get blackballed at the top level. Um, but I'm not the one making the decisions. Those are athletic directors nationwide who, I mean, are also having to weigh their image. So he probably won't get another shot, but I think he should be able to do it. Um, as far as anything else that I kind of thought was interesting, I thought that in the supplemental readings, the one on Hugh Freeze, which was really pretty recent, with the whole kind of hiring your like prostitutes and that type of thing, kind of even though he was married, and just general misconduct, um, definitely was really interesting. And the reason why I found that intriguing was not more so the actions that he committed, but I thought the way that they found it, kind of the investigative reporting through phone records, was really interesting because I remember reading it said they found like a phone call that lasted less than a minute, but then that it was like a pretty concerning phone call, and then they went and dug deeper into the phone records and found he was calling various escort services, um, and at first he kind of tried to deny it and said he had no idea, but I mean, he did admit to the conduct and finally offered his resignation. I mean, the NCAA and college sports in general is a really rough terrain of just kind of people towing the line and trying to cheat the system to the best of their ability. And here, he didn't try to get a strategic advantage in anything. He wasn't deflating balls or something that the Patriots were accused of doing. But misconduct is enough to allow you to lose your job, I think. Because it just reflects poorly on a university. In Mississippi felt they couldn't deal with that. I applaud their decision there. And if I had a talking point for this module, it would probably be Mike Rice getting another shot at coaching at the college level.